Happy Monday. Good evening. How are you all? Welcome. I hope everybody's having an amazing week so far, an amazing start to their week. It is so nice to see everybody. Today we are going to be covering a whole lot of different things. If you have no context about integrated attachment theory, how it works, we're going to be diving into a lot of that today. We're going to start by just talking a little bit about how to become a high impact relationship coach that clients are truly excited to work with, and the key ingredients, the secret to really making transformation happen so that you don't feel like, you're waiting to hope that people will want to work with you, but instead you feel like everybody that you come into contact with, everybody you work with is sending you out to referrals and sharing, all of the impact that you've had on them with other people. And, I really don't believe in like cold calling and chasing people. So we'll talk a little bit how to really build, but we'll also talk about what integrated attachment theory truly is. We'll talk about the perks of being a relationship coach and what the whole lifestyle looks like. We'll also talk about some of the hard parts and some of the challenges so that you really have that full picture. And we'll talk about why integrated attachment theory provides you with the tools that you really need to thrive in this booming industry. And we'll share a little bit of stories. I'll go through a little bit of stories of just past students and some success stories and why anybody anywhere can use this framework. So before we dive in, first and foremost, I would just love to hear what brought you here today. And what you're interested in, a lot of the different sort of people who come in here will hear them say, I have always wanted to help people before, or I've always been interested in human behavior and psychology, or I've always wanted to be somebody who doesn't work a 9 to 5, who has the flexibility and freedom to make an impact or to work from anywhere in the world. So I just love to hear before we even start a little bit about you and what brought you here. And that way I can just sort of dive in a little bit. Um, yeah, if you're already here for IAT, you've been to this masterclass, Anthony. I'll see you guys on Thursday this week, so you don't have to stay. This is literally just talking about the program, so you're good. But it's nice to see you. See you Thursday. Awesome. But yeah, I would love to hear. And by the way, if anybody, yeah, you're starting on Thursday. Yeah, very awesome. Super exciting. And so what we'll dive into here today is just for anybody who's not familiar with the program. This is the webinar for you, and we'll really just dive into some of the details of how it all works. And I'll go through and I'll answer your questions. And I think that the main idea here is I'll tell you about all the ins and outs, the ups and downs, the good, the bad, everything in between. But I think the main thing is like, I just want to know, I really want you to take the time today to be like, do I feel called to this? Do I feel like this is a good fit for me? Like, I definitely don't want people to come into the program who feel like, oh, it's not that interesting, but I should just do it. Like, no, like you really hear about it today, really see, what this is all about, and then take the time to decide, like, is this something that truly you feel is in alignment, something that like makes you feel really excited and inspired, because that's the place that you want to be making decisions from. So we're going to talk all about this. So let me just hear first and foremost, some of these shares in here as a whole. So what do we have? Hi, Lee. Got a mental health coach certification several years ago, but wasn't brave enough to move forward with it. Also, I felt like I needed more, says Yaz. Hi, Yaz. I'll be honest, I remember doing a life coaching certification as I did about 13 certifications over the years. I would just like do one a year. And I remember being like, is that it? Finishing it and being like, oh no, like that wasn't that deep or meaningful. And so, what my hopes, and I'll tell you about this here today, and sort of like the big secrets to transformation. I really think there's one like premium secret that, unless we're tapped into this, doesn't allow us to really have the transformation with our clients that we would hope. So we'll cover that today. But I really think that these are all of the tools from all the different 13 certifications I did, plus a whole bunch of education before that in university and different programs over the years as a whole. Like I basically took the best tools that are like my absolute favorite, put my own spin on them, related them to attachment styles and relationship coaching, and like you're gonna get the best of the best. But we'll cover that. We'll talk about that. For sure, but I hear you. Yes, I totally get that. I felt the same at points as well. Lisa, this is my own personal story for the why I do what I do. Now I want to help others. That's beautiful. So, Lisa, I'm imagining that you've been through something difficult before and been able to make it through to the other side, and now want to be in a place where you can share that with others. That's amazing. Yeah, see you soon, Wendy. So LJ knows. Hi, nice to see you though. I'm always happy to see your face, Wendy. Um, and I always see you nodding along in the PDS webinars and like in it. So that's awesome. Um, um, Anam says, hi, Anam. I see you in the PDS webinars too sometimes. Don't I need to be further along in healing before I coach others? I'm seeing the mix of attachment theory and how it can help people, but I'm not sure if I'm how far along I am with my journey. You know what? Here's what I would say. I would say just listen to everything that we covered today. I wasn't 100% securely attached when I started working with people. I definitely had done a lot of like inner work on like regulation and core wounds and nervous system work and a lot of things you're going to learn in the program. But I hadn't learned yet like really good boundaries and communication. Like I still had a good ways to go. And I just felt like I'd come such a long way from what I knew. And so, I don't think there's this like perfect place to be starting from. But I also am such a big believer in the wounded healer. Like I will say this time and time again. I think that if somebody's been through stuff and has had their own experience of healing on their own journey, that is 100 times more powerful than just learning something from the textbook. Like to go through it firsthand, you know the nuances, the ins, the outs. You can empathize, you can have compassion. Like there's just such a richness in your ability to truly be there for somebody that's so different than if you were just always securely attached. So, good thing to keep in mind. Laura says, I've been in PDS since July 2024. I'm fascinated with IAT. I would love to help folks. Love that, Laura. Nice to see you. Um, Leah says, I've been a coach for years and really resonate with what you teach. I'm looking forward to potentially adding this to what I offer. I love that. That's so exciting. It's beautiful if you're already in the space too. Hi, Robert and Marth. Nice to see you. Not familiar with your programs. This is your first time to be here. Amazing. We'll cover like lots of questions. I'll go through a whole bunch of different stuff here today. What else? We've been helping others my whole life, and now it's time to learn some better skills and make it a career. I'm called to this. I love that, Becky. I laugh because like I have seen so many people and it's like you're just helping people for free off the clock all the time. And that's just sometimes it's in people's like DNA in a way to be that like helper, supporter, to be there, and it can be so meaningful to really learn those skills. So I need to be secure, not FA, to help others. Listen, here's what I would say. If anybody's on their journey and they are just like 10 out of 10 FA, 10 out of 10 AP, 10 out of 10 DA, like they're just really, really insecurely attached, have never done the work, haven't started their healing journey, I would absolutely be like, okay, it's not the right time for you. Do the work on yourself first, get some traction, get some headway. But if you're somebody who's like, yeah, I'm FA, but I've been taking some big steps to becoming secure. I really understand a lot of these things. I'm implementing them. I'm seeing the growth. If that's where you are in your journey, that's one of the best places to be helping people from, is that place of like, I'm growing, I'm in it, I've done the work, I've seen that progress. Because again, you just have that depth of understanding in a deeper way. So that's what I would say is if you're really stuck in your attachments patterns, like really, really strongly, listen in today and hang out and meet people and come back to it. But if you're somebody who you've already got a lot of the work under your belt and you're seeing that progress, that's a beautiful place to be diving into this from. So great shares. Hi, Paula. Mandy, a mental health associate supervisor at a local crisis center, very interested in this. That's beautiful. I think you'll see a lot of really powerful overlaps in what really creates change and stops people from having to go back through crisis after crisis. We'll cover this today. Wendy, totally in alignment and inspired. Amazing. That is beautiful to hear, Wendy. That's awesome. I'll just read a couple more. There's so many great shares coming in. And I will come and sit back and read them all at the end of the webinar today when we wrap. But I'll just do a couple more to share in the group now. LJ says, woke up at 4:30 a.m. for this. I'm just going to go all out from Thailand. Inspired by Thais. Decided to come in here because I believe I can help foreigners here, my friends, loved ones. Beautiful, LJ. That's awesome. I love the commitment, the 4:30 a.m. It's beautiful. Eniko says, hi, everyone. Happy to be here. I already started my YouTube channel with meditations when I found this program. And now I am able to build a business with a proper certificate to help people and fulfill my mission. I'm also a fearful avoidant and want to heal also. That's beautiful. Awesome, awesome stuff. Hi, Brian from Toronto. Welcome. Psychiatric nurse. I coach people already, so a lot of people from all over, in terms of where you're at. So love to hear this. Love to just sort of connect and learn a little bit about each of you. So thank you for sharing. Amazing, amazing shares in here. I will come back and read through all of these in a little bit. So let's dive into like all of the things that we're going to cover because we've got a lot of things to go through. But I think one of the first things is for everybody to just take a moment and, I'm curious, have you thought about, a year from now, 5 years from now, 10 years from now, like what life do you want to be living? Because I am such a big believer that we need to be, if we really want to make the most out of our lives, we can't be running on autopilot all the time. We can't be just, unfortunately, when we're not like designing our lives with intention and coming up with like really clear goals and a clear vision of like how we see ourselves living the most fulfilling version of our future. When we don't take the time to consider this, then we're really just living, we're existing, right? We're just operating on autopilot. We're just the output of, our past, right? We're just the output of whatever programming or conditioning we got in childhood. We're just living through these same patterns day to day. And so I'm just curious, and I just want to put in your mind right now this idea of, what do you want your future to look like? What do you see yourself doing? And this is something to truly deeply consider and see if you're in alignment. Like, do you see yourself being somebody who wants to work with people on a daily basis, who enjoys people and time with people enough that you're like, you know what? I can really see myself doing this. Do you see yourself being somebody who was driven by impact? I think that that's almost like a prerequisite is to be deeply driven by wanting that meaning, that fulfillment, that depth of I get to wake up and make an impact every day. And are you somebody who maybe has always yearned for a flexible lifestyle where you're in charge of your own life? You're not working 9 to 5 for somebody else. You're making your schedule. You can work from anywhere you want in the world. And do you see yourself wanting to be that guide for people, wanting to be somebody who is coaching and assisting and supporting people in their process, in their journey? And what does that look like for you? What does that feel like for you on a daily basis if you wake up living that way? And when you just feel into that in this moment, does that click? Right? Because if you're sitting there going, that sounds kind of boring, or, I like people, but I don't really want to talk to people much. I think that ability to see yourself, do I see myself wanting to do that? I think is absolutely massive. And again, if you're that type of person who's just like always loves people, has always been so interested in people and why they do what they do and wanting to get to the root of things and wanting to make it, you'll know deep down if that's something that really calls to you. Okay. So take a moment and just feel into that. See if that's even something that feels like it's truly in alignment. And if you're sitting there going, oh my gosh, it feels so in alignment, but I'm scared I can't do it, or I'm scared I'm not good enough, that is completely normal. I've experienced that in my past. I was so scared when I first started my business. I was so scared to even public speak. I was so scared to do so many things. But I really hope, and what I've really tried to do, and I'll tell you more about it, but I really hope that this program has taken everything I've learned with working with tens of thousands of people, either online or through workshops or programs, or, I saw so many people in person as well, and eventually one-to-one online or couples together online and in person, for years. I've been at this for well over a decade. And what I've done is taken all of the best tools, all the things that I had to learn the hard way through, taking a certification over here, then here, and then here. And what I've done is I've actually distilled all of the best tools and frameworks possible because, in my opinion, so much of, I don't want to say what's wrong because there's some really great tools out there. And I know that the world is evolving, but just so much of what's limited is that our Western system deals a lot with the conscious mind when we're trying to assist people. We talk a lot about our problems. We think of solutions, and a lot of it is intellectualized. And the reason that this is actually a huge limitation in terms of somebody's ability to actually serve, and almost like Yaz was talking about, like I took this certificate, but I just didn't feel like it was like really deep enough. One of the biggest reasons, in my opinion, the most important reason that this is taking place is because your conscious mind, okay? So when we go into talk therapy or psychoanalysis, all of this is conscious mind work. And the conscious mind is responsible for 3 to 5% of all of your beliefs, thoughts, emotions, and actions. Okay. Your subconscious is 95 to 97%. So your subconscious mind is dictating on a daily basis all of your beliefs, all of your thoughts, not all, but 95 plus percent of them, all of your thought patterns, your emotional patterns, the daily actions, decisions, habits that you have on a daily basis. Okay. That is coming from the subconscious mind. And so one of the things that happens, and where I think a lot of, traditional talk therapy and a lot of the historical models of therapeutic interventions that we've used falls a little bit short, is that we can understand, oh, I do this thing because of this reason. Oh, that reason's back in my childhood. But then what? Right now we have context. Okay, that can be good. But unless we are targeting the subconscious mind in rewiring, in reconditioning, we are going to keep going through those same old patterns and themes time and time again. And you see this in your daily life. Like, have you ever had an experience personally where maybe you have a New Year's resolution or a goal? And you're like, my goal is to, exercise every day in the new year, or to break this unhealthy habit where I drink beers after work, or I I binge eat junk food when I get home. If you've ever had that experience of telling yourself you're going to do something, and maybe it's deeper. Maybe you're like, I want to stop getting angry at my partner and raising my voice or being critical. Maybe you're like, I want to stop texting somebody so much and feeling so anxious in a relationship, or I want to stop stonewalling people. If you've ever had the experience of knowing better and wanting to stop doing something, and you tell yourself, I'm going to do this, I'm going to change, and then what happens? Back to the same old patterns. Maybe a few days later, a few hours later. And if you've ever had that experience of that push pull, what that actually is your conscious mind, your logical thinking, analytical self being like, I'm going to change this thing and being able to psychoanalyze it. But your subconscious mind is the one that's responsible for the follow through. And in fact, it is a known fact that the conscious mind cannot outwill or overpower the subconscious mind. Okay. So if you've ever had a New Year's resolution or a goal and you don't follow through, maybe you've always wanted to start a business. If you've ever had that experience and then you self-sabotaged or didn't change, it's not that you're weak. It's not that you're not good enough. It's not that you don't have the willpower. It's that literally that's not how it works. Okay. So I'm so curious, how many of you have had that experience, right? Or even procrastination, right? Procrastination can literally be your conscious mind being like, we're going to do this task. And your subconscious mind is like, we're interested in these other things instead. We're more interested in watching some television this evening. We're more interested in hanging out with our friends or being on social media. So if you've ever had that experience, that's why. Okay. And you know what that means is if you extrapolate that out, it's like you're trying to control or change things with 5% of the power, max, right? 5% of your conscious mind. And that is why it's so difficult to experience real change, because we are so often targeting the conscious mind and not the subconscious. Now, how does this actually play into relationships? Okay, how does this move, how do we take that understanding or learning and actually address our relationships? Well, you see, in our actual childhood, we are conditioned. Okay, everybody's conditioned, and we are conditioned with subconscious patterns for what to expect when it comes to connection and love. So I want you to know that your conscious mind is your logical, analytical thinking self. Your subconscious mind is essentially the warehouse of your conditioning. Okay. Um, and so, yeah, that's a great share too, right? Running away from own feelings, but then that ruins the goals and dreams, right? This can definitely happen. Or people spend months or years in psychotherapy. I know, and that hurts to think about. It's not, I feel terribly that so many people spend so much time and maybe get a little bit of relief or insight, but don't get to really move through those next steps. And again, that's not all of psychotherapy. There are some great tools coming out more recently, but far and few between. And usually each of those tools is its own really long certification instead of learning many tools within a certification to address many instances, which is so much of what IIT does. Like you're not going to learn one tool that you take a whole certification for. You're going to learn there's over 12 different major rewiring frameworks. Anyways, we'll get into all of that in a little bit. So going back here for a second, right? If you've ever had this experience of your own childhood, right? You look back and you think of how you were conditioned, all the different patterns you got, all of the different ways you've learned about what to expect in relationships, what to expect around communication, what to expect when it comes to love or your needs being met or what to fear. And I'll tell you my own version of this story that I often share in here. And it's that I remember growing up. And I'm not going to tell you my parents' nitty-gritty lives and details. I'm going to just tell a little surface level one because I want to respect their privacy. But I remember growing up as a kid. And, I grew up in definitely a lot of fighting in my household. Okay. Some serious arguments, some really intense ups and downs, a lot. And, I remember always feeling like there was chaos and always walking on eggshells, always being like worried about when was the fight going to break out, what was going to happen next, like just having that constant anxiety at home as a kid. And I remember one day, I was maybe 8 years old or so, and I was wearing this little nightgown, and it was like, it must have been a Saturday or a Sunday morning. And I had this little flower nightgown on, my PJs, and I came, running down the stairs for the morning. And I remember my dad said, "Hey, we need to talk. Come sit down with me." So he pulled me into a room, a little front room in our house. And he said, "Your mother and I are getting a divorce." And I remember being so sad. I was like shocked and I was crying and crying. And I think I was shocked, but this part of me like knew for a long time that things were not going so well, to say the least. And I remember being so sad. And, we had the conversation and then the day went on. And I kind of wondered with anticipation, like what was going to happen next? Who was I going to live with? When were they moving? Was I going to stay at the same school? Like I had all these worries and concerns because I had friends whose parents divorced and they left the school or, things changed. And the days passed and then weeks passed and then months passed. And maybe it was about 4 months later. And I would wonder every day, like, are they getting divorced? Are they separating? What's going to happen? And eventually, my dad, one morning, same thing, came and took me aside and said, "Your mother and I are getting a divorce." Almost like we had never had the conversation the first time. And I cried again and I cried again and I was so upset, but I kind of like was needing the certainty. I was almost like, okay, finally, you're telling me what's happening. And then guess what happened? Weeks and weeks went by, months went by, no divorce, no changes, everything was the same. And I would still think about it every day. And then a few months passed, we had the same conversation, taken aside. And then this pattern proceeded to happen probably every 3 or 4 months for the rest of my childhood until I was a teenager and they finally got divorced. And this happened so frequently that I just was totally desensitized to it. Like I didn't even think about it. It was like, oh, they're getting a divorce. Okay. By the time I was like 13, I was just so used to this. So here's the interesting part. Guess what I did? Well, when I was in my first serious relationship, serious enough where I lived with somebody, I was still a young teenager, but serious for whatever you can have as a teenager in a relationship. Guess what I did? Well, number one, I fought with this person constantly. I can actually remember thinking at one point in the relationship, we haven't had an argument in a while. That's weird. I better start an argument. Like, is everything okay? We're not arguing because I truly believed that like love was arguing. Okay. So that was something I had to really recondition in myself. But second, as soon as things got really serious and my attachment style started to emerge, I was a fearful avoidant. I threatened to leave. And I probably threatened to leave the relationship. You guessed it, every 3 or 4 months. And I had no idea. Okay. I was like 18, 19, 20 when I was in this relationship, 21. No idea. Okay. I had no like insight into myself, but I was a psychology student at the time. And I just so happened to be in a psych class one day and somebody said to me, "Your conscious mind can't outwill or overpower your subconscious mind." And I remember thinking there were so many times that I felt, I was fearful avoidant. I would, pick a fight in a relationship, be harsh with my words or really critical, then feel really guilty about how I acted, and then go back to people pleasing in the relationship. And I just felt like relationships were so hard, were so draining, were so confusing. And I think it was just this moment. There was a few other things happening in my life at the time for sure, but there was this peak moment of going, wait, maybe I should look at myself. Maybe it's not the other person. And it clicked for me at a point in studying like my own patterns that, oh my gosh, here I am, not even consciously realizing it. And instead, I'm literally replaying my attachment patterns and what I saw about love and connection on autopilot. I'm just doing exactly what I saw. I think love and connection is about fighting. I'm actively trying to like pick an argument in a relationship if there's no arguments happening. And I remember just like my mind was blown and I became probably addicted to learning about the subconscious mind. I was like, what's going on in here? What is this all about? What's happening from a neuroscience perspective? What is our conditioning? What is our programming? And that's when I proceeded to dive into about 13 different certifications. Started with a year-long certification in hypnosis, went into neurolinguistic programming, cognitive behavioral therapy, nervous system regulation, and somatic experiencing, internal family systems, whole bunch of like trauma-informed life coaching work, shadow work. I mean, I could go on and on. I got obsessed with learning. I was like, wait, how do I change my own patterns? Like why are we not talking about this when I'm studying psychology in university? Why am I not hearing more about the subconscious mind? And I wasn't. So before I tell you more, I'm curious if you've seen this in your own experience. I'm curious if you've ever been in a situation where you go through life and here you are and you look back and you're like, oh my gosh, I'm replaying my own childhood in different forms. I'm doing similar things. I see a lot of nods. And I'm curious if you feel comfortable sharing at a high level, like what were those things? Did you find yourself in a situation where you were always feeling abandoned as a kid or unloved or not good enough? And then you found yourself feeling that way as an adult all the time? Did you see a dynamic where you felt like a parent wasn't chosen? And then you, as an adult, pick people who didn't feel like made you feel chosen either? Or did you find yourself, feeling trapped all the time as a kid? And now you're kind of keeping everybody at arm's length as an adult. Yeah, Andy, I saw a lot of me and you. Yeah, so you see a lot of those similar themes. Yeah, and Laura, Tyson's story sounds just like mine. Um, thank you, Paulina. I appreciate it. I received that. I found out too late. I believe it's never too late, Lawrence. I hear you. It can be hard when we find out later than we like, but the beautiful thing is some people live and go through their whole lives not even realizing how impactful the subconscious mind is. And so it's never too late to create changes now, right? Yes, parents divorced when I was 10. I did the same thing you did. Wow. Yeah. So you totally see it. Avoider over reactor. Yeah. And you probably see those themes as a child, like just to avoid. Maybe everything felt kind of uncomfortable or felt learned helplessness around addressing things. So then as an adult, you still feel that learned helplessness around addressing things too. So many great shares. I've lived the fear of the love I saw as a kid, an alcoholic father. I'm so sorry, who was abusive towards my mom. It can be so hard, Mandy. I'm so sorry to hear that. And we see those become the themes that play out so easily. Um, all of the above, all of those people pleasing to my parents, because Asian parents are never satisfied with the path you choose, and then seeing that people pleasing play out. I remember your question one day, LJ. You can see some of the people pleasing themes. I hear that. Nice to see you. Oh my goodness, when I found this info, it was like trading my whole life. I know it can be so huge to realize some of these things. Yes, abandonment and abuse, no choices in life after having a kid. But my child helped me to realize this, and I'm breaking through this cycle. That's beautiful. I'm so glad to hear that. Very only recently discovered it it didn't matter how much I excelled or how much I gave, it was never good enough. You want to know the craziest part of all of this? Okay. Our conscious mind can analyze this and be like, I know that I have these patterns. And our subconscious mind wants its comfort zone. So it will keep your subconscious mind ultimately wants survival and safety, and it equates familiarity to safety. So if you've ever seen somebody and they're like, I know I should leave this relationship. I know it's not healthy. I know this person's not investing into me. Their conscious mind knows, but their subconscious mind might keep picking and choosing the same type of dynamics because the subconscious mind says, this is familiar and we've been surviving this whole time. So this is safe. So let's keep choosing it. And so that's why our conscious mind can be like, no, 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 red flags, red flags. And our subconscious is like, oh, I love red flags. Let me just go right back in the direction of all these red flags. That's the conscious versus subconscious mind. Okay. So there's so many amazing shares. Again, I'm going to read through all these at the end, but I see that, that all of you really understand. Okay. So how does this then relate to attachment theory? Well, if you're not familiar with attachment styles, which I'm sure everybody is on this call right now, attachment theory was originally developed by John Bowlby and Mary Ainsworth, who later jumped on. And there's four types of attachment styles. You can think of them as like love or relationship styles, but it's really the study of how our relationship with our parents or caregivers as children basically conditions us, in other words, subconsciously programs us, it's the exact same thing, um, for how to love in our romantic relationships as adults. Okay. So the study of how our romantic relationships are basically dictated by the relationships we have to our caregivers growing up. Now, that is an amazing thing, right? Attachment theory, huge discovery. Guess where it was incomplete? Well, John Bowlby and Mary Ainsworth were like, here's the child's attachment style. And then they never were like, here's how you change the attachment style, right? It's like, wait, you told us this gold, and then you never told us what to do with it. Well, what's interesting is for myself personally, I got so into rewiring the subconscious mind and specifically focusing first on like core wounds and nervous system regulation and needs. And this is back, like this started, 13 years ago or so. And nobody was talking about the subconscious mind then. They were, but it was like very niche, very far and few between. And I was obsessed with this. So I started off by just giving free workshops to people. I would just like host little workshops in libraries, host meetup groups, get people to come out, just give these free talks. And so many people would come and say, like, oh my gosh, are you taking clients? And so I built my practice before I even finished school because I would just have people like I'd give these free workshops and people would ask to work with me. And then had a 2-year wait list within a very short period of time of seeing people and was like, okay, well, I better start putting information online so that people who are on the wait list at least feel like there's some support and help. And that's when we started our YouTube channel, which I think eventually, I think we've had over 60 million views now. And I've been really blessed to work with people in different podcast formats like Mel Robbins or Ed Milet or Lisa Bilyeu. And eventually wrote 2 books on the subject of integrated attachment theory, which is not just the science of our attachment styles, but the science of how we can leverage neuroplasticity and rewiring our subconscious mind to literally change our attachment style. But here's the thing. People kept asking me the entire time, right? Even since starting PDS and having more than 40,000 students come through and take our programs, um, people would constantly and still do every day reach out to our customer service inbox and say, "Hey, do you see people one to one? Will you see me for one-to-one coaching or counseling?" And here's the reality, okay? The reality is there's a lot of really great self-motivated people who can come into PDS and take our courses and take our programs and do the work and see the results. And then there's a lot of people who like need extra handholding. There's a lot of people who are like, I don't want to take an online program. I want somebody to work with me one to one. I want somebody to help guide me on a weekly basis that I can talk to as a person and share my life with one to one. And I realized, hey, we're not really serving that demographic of people. And to me, I think this is like one of the most important things ever. I think that like if you can't learn to change your subconscious patterns, you are literally going to be living your childhood trauma on autopilot, on repeat. And that's a tragedy. And so I was like, okay, I figured if, you know, I really wanted to help people at that next level for people who need that support, I had to teach people how to coach. And that's how this whole certification was born. And so when you think about this, right, you think of like, you know, IAT and how this all works. This is about how we change our attachment style. And there are basically 5 key pillars for how we do this. Okay. And this is the framework of how we actually change our attachment style as a whole. Okay. So the first thing is core wounds. And if we have all these core wounds from childhood, you know them, you probably know yours just when I say them. The core wound of being abandoned, the core wound of being betrayed and always thinking you're going to get cheated on or betrayed or lied to, the core wound of feeling trapped, the core wound of, feeling like I'm going to be unworthy or not good enough or unloved or disrespected or powerless or unsafe, right? These are all core wounds. There's 18 major ones. We all, if we have an insecure attachment style, carry a certain degree of core wounds. Usually there's like 7 or 8 major ones for each attachment style. This is your relationship baggage. Okay, for a not so nice term, this is your relationship baggage. This is what unfortunately happened to you in your childhood that you definitely would have never asked for if you had a say. And instead, it got imprinted into your subconscious mind. It's stuck in the warehouse of your subconscious mind. And now here you are replaying it on autopilot. Okay, so now here you are. And here's the analogy I always give to people. If you go into the woods tomorrow and you take a walk and you see a bear and that bear chases you and you get out of the woods, thank goodness, and you're safe. But the next day you go back into the woods, what happens? you go into the woods and like every time the wind blows and you hear the trees rustle, you're like, the bear is coming, right? You're like prepared, you're bracing for the bear. Why? Because our subconscious mind will store scary and more negative things more than positive, and then hold on to them and project the likelihood of these of the bear coming, of the threat happening or taking place again to protect you from it. Right? So you don't walk out of the woods and go back in the next day and go, oh, yesterday when I saw that bear, there was such a beautiful flower next to the bear. I hope I see that flower again. No, never in a million years. So, how does this relate to childhood? Well, if you felt abandoned in your childhood because your parents were inconsistent, or because there was a divorce or a real abandonment, if you felt betrayed because you always had to walk on eggshells, if you felt emotionally unsafe, I mean, you name it. If you had these wounds, what do you think your mind does as an adult? Like the bear, it looks for them everywhere, right? You're like, oh my gosh, I'm in a relationship. When am I about to be abandoned? When is the other shoe going to drop? And we constantly fear those different things. Okay. So, first thing that you'll learn in this program is how to rewire your trauma. You're not born with this. Okay. You're literally not born with it. It gets conditioned into you through repetition and emotion over time, which fire and wire neural pathways we can leverage in very simple ways that make a huge, massive, tangible impact and huge results. How to rewire those core wounds so that you're not constantly fearing that everywhere. The second thing you'll learn in this program is how to teach people to understand their needs, their relationship needs. The amount of people I've met in one-to-one, in working with couples and workshops and PDS that when they first learn about needs, they're like, I've lived my whole life and I never knew I had needs. Okay. Everybody has needs. They're particularly relevant in our relationships. They're literally the lifeblood of our relationships. And different attachment styles have different needs. Okay. And needs are way more impactful than love languages. I'll tell you that. Okay. I can get in, you'll learn all the reasons why. But if you don't know your needs, or you don't know how to actually communicate to your partner what your needs are, and you don't know what your partner's needs are, good luck. You're going into relationships blind. Okay? So, second major framework is we learn, okay? You'll learn how to teach your client you've got all these in-depth assessments for how to actually find somebody's needs and how to teach people how to meet their own needs as well. Okay? So that guess what that does? That's called self-regulation. That's called self-soothing. Okay? So, rewire your baggage, aka core wounds. Teach your client their needs. Okay, go through the assessments, actually help your client to navigate these needs so they can properly self-soothe. Number three, learn to regulate the nervous system. Okay, there's body work in this certification. You'll learn how to actually help somebody move from being constantly in fight or flight. If you were like me growing up, always on eggshells, always waiting for the other shoe to drop, always on high alert. That's not healthy. That's not good for your nervous system. That's not good for your cortisol levels. That's not good for your immune system function, the gut-brain axis. I mean, you'll learn about all of that and how to help your clients regulate it. Okay. Next thing you'll learn in our five pillars is so nervous system regulation, LJ. Um, and yeah, how to regulate your nervous system and do some somatic work. So how to really regulate your emotions in different ways too. But that'll come a lot from core wounds and learning needs. So core wounds, needs, nervous system work or emotional regulation. And then that's the inner work. Okay. That's the like of myself work. I heal myself internally, heal the relationship to self. That's what you'll learn to help your client do. And then we do the interdependent work, which is now I take this understanding and now I go communicate my needs to my partner. And the amount of people, and I'm just going to say this really bluntly, forgive me in advance, the amount of people, I was one of them, the amount of people that absolutely suck at communication is serious. Okay. I would have clients come in all the time. They'd be like, Thais, my husband never listens to me. And I'd be like, oh no. And then I'd get to know them a little more. And this is how they'd be communicating to their husband. You never do this. You always do that. What's wrong with you? You don't care about me. People don't hear you when you communicate that way. There's no point. Okay, so you'll learn, yeah, exactly, Wendy. So you'll learn these tools for how to do things like one very simple tool for communication is called positive framing. It's the difference between somebody saying, you don't care about me, you never spend enough time with me, versus saying, hey, I'm feeling disconnected. I want to have more quality time in our relationship. Let's plan a fun date night this weekend. Okay, positive framing gets people heard. Negative framing is just this old adage behind every criticism is just a need. And unfortunately, we're saying it in not so great of a way. So somebody then thinks they're communicating to their partner, is left feeling further unheard and further isolated and alone in that, right? When they just don't know how to communicate properly. So you'll learn really powerful foundational tools for communication and to de-escalate conflict. Okay. How to stop conflict from having to go all over the map. Okay. How to actually be able to de-escalate. Then our last pillar is healthy boundaries. Okay. Communicating healthy boundaries sometimes sounds like it is this separation, oh no, I set boundaries and that's going to drive me further away from people. No. Boundaries are adjoining because boundaries are the authentic expression of your yeses and your nos. Okay? Your truth. You don't connect with people by only saying when things are a yes. You connect with people by showing your whole self, your authentic self. That includes the things that make you feel uncomfortable or disconnected. So you will learn tools for all of these pillars in this program. But most importantly, all of these tools are designed to actually rewire, not just intellectualize. Okay. So you learn actual tools that leverage neuroscience to make sure that these become somebody's new set point, new normal. It's not just, oh, look at these tools. Now the person knows theoretically how this works. No, we know how to actually engage the subconscious mind by leveraging key principles of neuroscience that if I went into now would take forever, so I won't bore you. They're actually really not boring. They're actually really exciting and amazing, and I love them. But you will learn all of these things and how to actually implement these at the subconscious level of mind so that you're assisting your clients in not just understanding and intellectualizing, but actually being able to completely recondition so this becomes who they are and how they naturally show up in real time without having to think it through. Okay. And this becomes the neuroscience of how we change our attachment style. You know why? Because those 5 key pillars I just said, we're just reverse engineering from where securely attached people are. So watch this. What was pillar number 1? Core wounds. Securely attached people have way less core wounds. Okay, so we're literally rewiring so that somebody who's insecurely attached, we get rid of their core wounds. Number 2, securely attached people know their own needs and how to meet them. That's why they're good at communicating and solving conflict in real time. That's what we're teaching. We're doing those worksheets and assessments to get somebody to know their needs and how to meet them, and then drive it into the subconscious mind so that we actually wire that in as the new set point. Emotional regulation. Securely attached people, guess what they do? Spend more time in parasympathetic nervous system. That's our rest and digest mode. Okay. Insecurely attached individuals are spending way too much time in sympathetic. Okay. Fight, flight, freeze, or fawn mode. So we implement that. Again, we don't just understand it and intellectualize it. We get it into the subconscious mind. Okay. Then we go into what? Communicating our needs, our boundaries. Guess what securely attached people do very well? Those things. Okay, so we're reverse engineering those pillars, driving into the subconscious mind, helping people become securely attached. Now, here's the coolest part. So many of the tools that you'll learn will literally be applied to everything. So when somebody has a core wound and it's, plaguing their relationship, this fear of not being good enough, guess where else it shows up? In the workplace, around money, around how they see themselves physically, how it will literally spill out into everything. I can't even tell you how many times I would see a client, work with them on relationship oriented things, and they'd be like, hey, can we keep working together, but now do it for my career? Can we keep working together, but now do it over here? So these things will literally spill out into everything because guess what? Your attachment style, first and foremost, above all, is the relationship each person has to themselves. Okay. And that's going to go with you into career, into your relationship with money, into how you deal with things emotionally, mentally, how you see yourself physically. It's going to spill into, of course, your friendships, your co-working relationships. It will go everywhere. Okay. So with that being said, that is a very short version. And it may sound like a lot. You might be sitting here going, oh my gosh, that's a lot of pillars. That's a lot of tools. It is something that will be so streamlined. You're going to have the tools all written out. They're in like little formats, worksheets that everything's mapped out for exactly what to say to your client, how to say it, examples, everything. And we're going to go through it together in the program so frequently that you'll leave being like, without even thinking, okay? Without even thinking, you'll know exactly the approaches to take, when to use which tools, etc. And I will say as well, when you dive into other certifications, and not to like say something negative about other certifications, I've done many of them and they're amazing. But you usually go for a certification, let's say, to learn tools about like somatic experiencing, okay? You'll do a whole certification just on that. Guess what? We cover all of the different somatic techniques in this program. Okay, you're gonna go do a certification and it's gonna be on life coaching. Okay, guess what you learn? All the coaching techniques and practices you need to set up sessions. Okay, you're gonna go do a certification on cognitive behavioral therapy. Guess what? You're gonna learn all the best tools from CBT, but most importantly, how to take CBT and make it subconscious. Okay, so within this one certification, there's all of these different sets of tools from so many different certification that it's going to be very complete. Okay. So that to me is like, again, I like didn't hold back in this. So hopefully this will be something for anybody who's doing it that you're like, whoa, I learned some of the best tools on the planet, how to actually like really wire them into my subconscious mind. And I didn't do this whole certification for one tool. I did this whole certification for 12 different tools that all target the subconscious mind in the process. Okay. So let me dive into the next part here because I promised I would cover this. That's a little bit about the program. It's covered across 12 weeks. I'll tell you more of the outline in a minute. But here's the best and worst parts of being a coach. Okay. First and foremost, the best things, they're pretty easy to decipher. And again, this is where I think it's good to see if you feel like this is important to you, like if you're driven and motivated by these things. And the first part is you will dive into having so much meaning and you'll wake up every day feeling like, oh my gosh, I get to have an impact. And it's honestly really beautiful. Like I'm biased because like contribution's a really big need for me. I love people. And I just think that you get to see people's journeys and the inside, the depth of like so many people's lives. I think there's something sacred about that. I think there's something so meaningful about that. And then to actually see the change because you're giving people these really clear tools for how to help them rewire at the subconscious level. It's like you get to connect every day with people. You get to feel like you're making an impact. You get to learn every day. You just learn because you're around people and hearing about their lives in general. And you'll learn just so many things you would have never thought about because you hear so many different perspectives and unique viewpoints on life. And there's that richness to that. You'll also get a lot of breakthroughs. You'll get a lot of like you get a little bit of a dopamine hit because you'll take people through seeing things differently and you see them have those ahas and it's kind of this like magical experience. And of course, you get the flexibility, the freedom. I'm a big freedom person, so I love that. You get to have the abundance. I mean, it's a great career and you get to work from where you want and make your own schedule and all of those things. You get to really design your life. So if you're somebody who like likes that, that's huge. If you're somebody who's like, oh, I like when my life is designed for me, I like to like follow directions more, then that might be a little bit trickier, right? But if you're somebody who's like, no, 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 I want things to be on my terms, then this is a great career for that for sure. That's one of my favorite things that I enjoy. So here's some of the challenges, okay? Your challenges is once you get your systems built out, which by the way, and I'll tell you about the outline of the program in a minute, but once we get the systems built out, you will be able to, the systems are not to cold call anybody, okay? The systems are going to be that you have people coming to you, reaching out to you. You can follow up with them and talk to them on the phone once they've reached out to you, but they're going to be coming to you. You're going to have marketing funnels built out. We have a whole area just around Business Week. So you'll learn how to build your business, register everything, like how to start it from the ground up, and then how to actually create high value content, online content, how to nurture an email list, how to build different funnels. We have like the longer term is the online content. Then there's like a secret set of short-term strategies that are like the best, highest impact to get clients almost immediately. So we'll cover all of this. Okay. And at that point, here's where it becomes hard. If you're like me, I had some boundary work to do when I started seeing clients. Remember, I told you I wasn't fully secure when I started my practice. I had some boundary work to do. I saw way too many people, okay, for way too long. And sometimes you have to turn people down. Sometimes you have to say no to people. And sometimes that's really hard when people are like in need, okay? Sometimes you'll have to make sure you don't take your work home with you. Sometimes you'll have a conversation with somebody and you'll know they're going through a hard time. Like somebody just lost, a loved one and they're grieving, or, they're going through a breakup and it's really tough on them and you're just starting to work with them. And sometimes you'll see things and you'll go, oh my gosh, like this is, and you'll have to learn boundaries, emotional boundaries, so you don't take your work home, which by the way, we also talk about in the program because it's extremely important. And the other challenge will be sometimes you'll be in a situation where you might want to just stay forever with a client. I had a lot of that where I'd be like, oh, let the sessions run way too long. And you can't do that because you'll get burned out. Okay. So the challenges are also going to be that you have to be able to charge for your client sessions. You have to charge a proper amount of money so that you feel like you can have this nice, healthy work-life balance. Because it's higher demand in terms of the work. Okay. So it's not like sitting typing behind a computer screen. It's it's so much more you put a lot of emotional energy into it. Okay. So you'll learn how to map out like the amount of clients you should see, what you should charge, what the going rate is, all of those different things. And yeah, and you do not need a degree in psychology. I'm going to tell you something really honest. Okay. Um, I spent a lot of time in school for psychology, and um, the most value I got just in general from all of the different like education formats that I dove into were not from the traditional school system. I'm just being really honest. And I'm not there to say that that's bad, but like the amount that I probably pull from like the traditional psychology space in terms of the work I do, I would say is less than 1%. Yeah. Wendy knows. And it's true. And so, there's just so I just if I could do it over, I might have done it a little bit differently. But yeah, I would just say, actually, I'll take that back because I did hear somebody say the conscious mind can't outwill the subconscious mind, and that was life-changing for me. But you do not at all. And the whole program is set up to not be structured that way. Okay, so it's not like pulling on, oh, assuming you did your undergrad in this. No, 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 it's literally set up to start you off from scratch as if you have no prior training. And it's really foundational. And even people who are in the space already seeing clients, we do actually have a really unique approach that we take in terms of like how to set up your sessions and how to make an impact that I always advise other psychologists or therapists or coaches or wellness practitioners of any sort use, because it really increases like your stick rate for clients, the amount of people that will come back to see you and hardly ever cancel sessions. We'll cover that a lot in week 6 of the program, but I'll save that for another time. So. Those are the amazing parts and the challenges. Now, here are some of the other things, and I will come back and catch up on a bunch of the questions too. I'm just going to go through a couple more things here briefly, and then we'll do a whole bunch of Q&A. But I just want to share different ways that people use certification. So these are some of our, I guess, like success stories. But we get people emailing us all the time in our customer service inbox, just sharing about like the impact that IAT had and what they do and what they've been up to, and just like cool stories. So some of the different ones that I'll highlight here, just highlight different niches. So, first and foremost, we have Jennifer Noble, who is a first cohort graduate, and she went on to build a fantastic business. And she did a TED Talk on attachment styles that came out about a year ago, which is amazing and super exciting. Then we have Emily Blaine, who used her certification program to build a powerful retreat-based business where she leads couples on retreats. She takes them through different retreats all around the world, and you'll learn frameworks to work with couples, how to work in group coaching, how to work one-to-one. You'll learn the different sort of formats in Business Week that you can use. We have Annette, who I just have to share because we ended up hiring her into PDS. Annette Della Barbara, you may have seen her before. She works with PDS. She obviously has a wait list of clients. And she just travels around the world. Every time I see her, I never know what country she's in or where she's at. I'm always like, oh, where are you today, Annette? And so that is a huge piece. And then we have Ben Dawson, who used his relationship certification to help people improve their workplace relationships. So he works with large corporations. He charges somewhere between $5,000 and $10,000 a month, depending on the size of corporation. So small to medium businesses, about $5,000 a month. Larger scale businesses, about $10,000 a month. He'll come in and do 1 or 2 workshops a month, in person, or get people to meet online. And from there, that basically acts as another funnel where then he'll have people come out and just work with him on their corporate dynamics. And when you look at the pillars, right, the core wounds, you rewire them in work. Needs, you learn what your workplace needs are and how you're going to thrive and what position to be in your career. Emotional regulation matters at work to avoid burnout with your nervous system, right? Then we have the boundaries, the communication, all of those things have a huge impact. So anyways, he works there, and he ends up in a dynamic where he does the workshops, and then people just from the workshops like to want to work with him one to one. So then he sees like high ticket, sort of like C-level executives out of those corporations and works with them while doing these corporate presentations once or twice a month in different places. So he's doing amazing. So a lot of people will also ask me, like, how do we know that this will be a good market? Is this a good industry to get into? Like the AI revolution's happening. What does the future look like? Honestly, if there's going to be one industry that's going to be one of the strongest, like top five industries that will survive the AI changes, it's this. Okay, because people do not want to see robots. They robots, ChatGPT is helpful, let's be honest. But like if you're going through something hard, do you really want to talk to a robot? Absolutely not. Okay, so it's gonna outpace AI in terms, or it's gonna out pivot AI for sure. In regards to it's just sustainability, it's gonna be an untouched industry. And on top of that, just the relationship coaching market in general, if you look at the general revenue of coaching, in 2019, the global revenue of coaching was 2.849 billion, so just under 2.85 billion basically. And then just a few short years later in 2023, it was 4.564 billion and still growing rapidly. And what that means is this industry is exploding. And my favorite part of this whole thing is not as only is the industry exploding, but specifically the relationship coaching industry hasn't even the wave is like just starting to take shape. There's been such a shift and pivot into like relationships and how they impact us and how that relates to our attachment style as a whole and just relationship coaching, which hasn't even really been a very served market for quite a long time. And it's just starting to really take off. So it's a huge industry with very little competition. So for anybody who knows anything about business, that's like the best niche to be in. Huge industry, exploding, not going to be affected by AI and still really early days. So it's just like a hotbed to build a thriving business if there's a place you're going to get into. And of course, you see like the divorce rate's 50%. That's 50% of people who could use support, right? Could use help. And I'm such a believer that like divorce, unhealthy relationships, fatherless homes, and just poor communication, fighting, chaos all the time, those things are so hard on kids. And so I don't just like to think of this as like you're going to be helping coach adults and help them with their relationships, and help them truly have tools that can rewire their patterns and actually make an impact so they can see the physical and emotional changes. Not just that, but you're actually going to be helping support children and future generations that don't have to grow up with so much chaos because they have parents who learned the right tools at an earlier time. And so maybe this is like too pie in the sky for me. I'm like a little bit of an idealistic person, but I just love to think of like what happens in the future generations that we can, if we get to contribute to making the world, even if it's a drop in the bucket, a better place for children and future generations to come by really getting these tools out here to as many people as possible so that kids can start becoming more securely attached themselves as they grow up because they grow up in healthier, more stable homes. Much. But one of the first big things here is, yeah, I love this too, right? Systemic and generational healing, exactly. And so the last major thing here that I just want to say is this is sort of the outline of the program. Okay, so how the program starts is you actually start with an introduction into looking at your own patterns, and that's so that you can understand the tools from the inside out, look through anything where you have these different themes at a subconscious level and how they were acquired. Because again, like I'm just such a believer that you don't want to just be only sharing these tools with others. You want to learn about these things in the relationship to yourself. Okay. So you start there, you'll go into rewiring any different patterns in the relationship to yourself and understanding the subconscious mind and neuroplasticity so that you know why and how we can change so much more rapidly. Okay. So that's the first major piece. Then we dive into those pillars I was talking about, the core wounds, which is our relationship baggage, the needs. You'll learn the different assessments, the different tools. Everything is mapped out so clearly in front of you. It's like literally to the point where it's like, take your client through this worksheet, ask this question. Here's an example of how they might answer, and you can give them an example. Now ask this question. Like it's so dialed in terms of just like walking you through every single step. So the tools are really easy to learn. and really high impact. And you don't have to have everything memorized and worry about it. Like we'll practice them so much throughout the program as well. So you'll be able to dive into the core wounds, how to rewire them, right? Rewiring our relationship baggage. Then it'll be the needs, taking your clients through the assessment to learn their needs, to learn their partner's needs or loved one's needs in their life, and then how to meet them for self-soothing. The somatic work will be in there. The communication frameworks will be in there. The boundaries work will be in there. And again, how to apply these things all at the subconscious level. And then we even have some shadow work, some bonus shadow work for anybody who's into that stuff, because shadow work's really powerful stuff. And at the end of the program, we go into business week. So we dive all into, there's like a 4 hour whole like business seminar that's recorded. You can watch through any time. And then we meet live to go through like Facebook ads and marketing and funnels and all of these different things so that you have these systems that can set you up for success. Okay. So that is essentially the framework in and of itself. And the idea is that you have these systems that you can build in your sleep so that you're not like cold calling people and chasing people. I don't think that's ever the right place to come at from this perspective. Like when you're working with people, what you want to do is have the best tools. Okay. And then have really great like marketing and website and know your niche, which you'll learn all of how to do so that then people land and they find you and they're ready and excited to work with you. Okay. So you'll learn how to set those different things up. And truly, this is set up for people who have no past experience, people who have tons of past experience. This will still be so extremely valuable because, again, these tools are very different in terms of engaging the subconscious mind and really getting to the root cause. And you'll even have like a master key for when to use which tool and in which situations so that you're super duper prepared. Okay. Now, I want to leave you with one thought because um, and I'll come back and answer questions in just a moment as well, but I know people are asking. Um, I was somebody who spent a lot of time just helping my friends for free when I started learning tools and not taking action and not launching my business. I still launched it pretty early, but I spent a little bit too much time just not taking real action to like get things off the ground and really trying to like make everything um, get moving. And so I just, if you're somebody who feels called to this, I want to have a think about like, hey, what does it cost me if I don't take action? What are the costs if I just like stay doing what I'm doing? I know that this is something I'm being called to. I know that this is something that could help me make a huge impact. But, you know, I'm just going to kind of leave it for another couple of years and see what happens. And what does that look like in 6 months versus 2 years versus 5 years? And I think that that's something to have an honest discussion with yourself about if there is that deep calling. Okay. If you do feel that like really strong resonance. Now, um, the next steps, just in terms of what happens after this, and I'm going to come back and just catch up on a ton of questions. But the next steps are the next cohort. There's two variations of the certification. One is live. Live's the most fun. You'll get to be in there with me. We'll do it together every week. So you do there's like a recorded part of content to watch during the week to prepare you, and then we go into live sessions together. Um, love it, Wendy. Love the enthusiasm. Amazing. Thank you. And so what ends up happening is you'll come in, we'll do the live session together for like an hour and a half to 2 hours every week. We say an hour and a half, they basically always go 2 hours. So prepare for that. And we'll do tools together. I'll answer all your questions. I'll walk you through the tools. We'll do them in the chat. We'll do some examples live in the video. And then at the end, you can take a break and come back, or you can just stay. You don't have to take a break. But at the end, then we go into breakout rooms and you can practice the tools. And we have two team members who come around, critique them, see how you're doing, give you feedback, answer your personalized questions too. So there's like so much time and support. You have to go through the content, but then to actually learn and integrate and get used to it. And that allows us to dive. I love that. And it go beautiful. That's amazing. Congratulations. And so, these are the ways of addressing these things. We get to do the live that way. There's like a lot of like oversight and feedback and practice, and it's fun because I get to really know everybody in there. And then we have the other version. Okay. So we have an on-demand version as well. The on-demand is for people who can't make the live time, right? So if like the live time is just not a fit for you because it's 2 a.m. your time and you have work the next day, then we have an on-demand. You don't come into any of the live classes, but you get all of the recorded content. Both have a really easy quiz at the end. Everybody always passes the quiz. It's not like a gotcha quiz. It's just to make sure that you have like all the tools and frameworks. And that will allow you to get the certification. We are certified, so you'll get certified, but we are also accredited. Okay, which is like sort of a bigger gold standard in terms of the coaching space. So you'll get to share that with people, and basically. The next session, the next live session starts May 21st. Okay. So I saw a couple people being like, I'm enrolling now, which is so exciting. So that starts May 21st. And ends August 6th. It's that 12 weeks. We dive into it in a tremendous amount of detail, and there are payment plans available. So it's $29.99 for the full 12 weeks. That's an extra $300 discount and it's on early bird special. So it normally starts at a much higher price. And we have payment plans. So with the payment plans, it literally goes as low as like $280 a month across 12 months. And so we try to make it as affordable as possible. And you can like get your certification and start working with people within the 12 weeks. So you don't have to like wait to pay it off to actually start or to use the certification. And then we have the on demand, which is also much more affordable too. So that's $17.99 only if you're on this early bird webinar here today. You get these prices. And that is the upfront, again, including an extra $300 discount, or it comes out to $169 across 12 months. And again, just like the other one, you can literally go through, get your certification, start working with clients, and then continue to pay it off for the rest of the 12 months. So you've got lots of time and flexibility to do that. And again, the next date starts May 21st and ends August 6th. The on-demand, you can literally dive in at any time. So it doesn't have to be something that you do at a specific starting date. And then there's just the quiz at the end. The last thing I'll say too is if you are here today, the offer for being in here today for those discounted offers, because otherwise it's $5,000 for the actual certification instead of the $29.99. That lasts here for 48 hours. Okay. Because early bird window closes very soon because we're nearing closer to the date. So if you want to dive in now, you can, or if you want to book a follow-up call, you can do that as well. And as long as you have a call booked, they'll reserve on the call. If you have personal questions or just follow-up questions, you can reserve on the call. And then on that call, or like you can reserve your call now, and then they'll have a note that you booked your call today. And then they'll reserve that pricing for you, even if the early bird window is closing. So those links are there in the chat, okay, if you don't want to miss them. Yeah, if you miss the early bird, how much will be the total for the program? So then it's 3,000 for on demand and 5,000 for the live. Okay, let me catch up on all the other questions. Does that give you guys all the framework of all the information so far? I think I covered everything for the PowerPoint. Amazing, awesome. Just for all of the different things that we said we'd talk about here today. So let me just go back up for a little bit and see if I can find as many questions. Yeah, sorry, Martha was like, can I ask about the cost of the program? We did it. Let me see what else I can. Is this recording available after the meeting? Absolutely. This will be sent out as a recording for sure. If you had to miss part of it, you said my son is here and I'm a bit distracted. Don't worry. Thank you for sharing. How does walking on eggshells make you feel betrayed? Because usually there's this dynamic of if you're walking on eggshells all the time in childhood, usually it's because the household is emotionally unsafe. And so there's an element of feeling like, oh, I can't trust my environment. I can't trust the individuals that I'm supposed to be trusting. So there's a usually unsafe and betrayal core wound that go with it. Good question. Yes. I've been learning about needs for almost 5 years now, and I ask everyone, what do you need? And 90% of the people just stare at me blankly. Totally. I hear that. It's so true. What else do we have? I have to share that I went through a very painful breakup 2 weeks ago. I somehow magically found Thais's teachings, and it has been almost the sole reason I've made it through the transition in a healthy way. Thank you, Thais. On LJ says same. Thank you both for sharing that, and I'm so glad that this has been supportive for you. I know you guys are both in PDS, so I'm so glad to hear the tools are helpful. Thank you. Ashley, so exciting that you're joining May 21st. Amazing. LJ, okay, and Helena, amazing. I will see you guys all the 21st. That's so exciting. What else do we have in terms of questions? Wendy, I know, so excited that you'll be there too. That's what I noticed as I learned and healed the relationship part. The FA-ness was playing out in my business. Yes, Emily, I love that you see that in all different aspects. Let me see what else. You'll regret the invitation, Lee. I love the questions. Let's go through the questions. What what happens? Lee was like, I have questions. You'll regret the invitation to post them in the chat. I love that. I love that you've got good questions. What happens in a situation where where the problem that a couple face doesn't seem to be the result of an attachment style? For example, it falls outside of the scope of training. So, this is a great first question. First thing is we have an intake process. So, the intake process will be, for example, you'll be able to filter out things that you're not equipped to deal with. So, for example, let's say somebody has been diagnosed as having schizophrenia, schizoaffective disorder, schizoid affective disorder. Let's say that somebody's in that particular space. You wouldn't work with that person, right? Because they're on heavy duty medication, mood stabilizers, all sorts of things. So there's actually a process for intaking the client just to ensure that before you get started with somebody, you're not going to end up in situations like that that do fall under this scope. Okay, so that's the first thing. The second thing is if there are seriously just relationship oriented problems, arguments, conflicts, challenges, the typical things you see in relationships, because the root cause of these issues has to do like I'll give you an example really quick. There's this old story, you'll hear this in one of the weeks that we teach it. But I had this couple one day and they came into work with me and they were so triggered about the laundry. They were so in this argument, peak upset about the laundry. Okay. The wife was sitting there in my office. This was my very first year of working with people. And she was talking about the clothes on the floor. And her hands were visibly shaking with like rage. And as she started getting really mad, her husband started getting really sad. And he kind of starts like moping. And I'm looking at them and I'm sitting there going, she's like 9 out of 10 angry. Like she's enraged. He's like 8 out of 10 sad. He just looks devastated. There is no way two people are this upset about clothes on the floor. Okay. Clothes on the floor cannot be this upsetting. And so I asked her, I asked the wife, I said, well, what do you make it mean about you when the clothes are on the floor? And she said, I'm disrespected. Well, guess what? That's a core wound. Guess what else? She had a huge disrespected core wound from her father in childhood. And then I asked him, okay, and what do you make it mean about you when she gets angry? And he said, I'm unloved. He said, she doesn't love me. I do all of these things for her and I try so hard and she doesn't see how hard I'm trying. And she gets this angry about something so small. I feel like she just doesn't love me. Guess what? Unloved is a big core wound. He had a big way of feeling that from his mother as a child. Okay. So we are never, we are never, we often argue about like what's really happening if you look at it from the outside in is here's two people actually arguing about being disrespected and unloved by their spouse. And they're trying to solve for it by talking about the clothes on the floor. Okay. So what you learn is how to pull out that information, how to make that subconscious information conscious to find what they're actually arguing about, and then how to start solving for it and rewiring the wounds. But I say all of that, Lee, to say that what ends up happening is so much of the attachment work, because it's boiled down into those pillars of the core wounds and the needs. These are all the roots of why we have relationship problems. So it will address outside of like things like people being on mood stabilizers or having, pre-existing diagnoses that fall out of your scope, which you'll be able to do intake for. Your marketing won't be marketing to those people anyways. Like it'll be so rare for you to have the whole intake process, have your niche chosen, all of your marketing materials set up, and then have people fall into your space that are out of scope. It wouldn't be something I would worry about because we do the pre-work necessary to avoid that problem in advance, if that makes sense. So really good question. Does the training provide all that is required to practice safely and effectively in this space, or is other training recommended? I would like to personally say that you don't have to do any other training to start like just thriving in your practice. It's really designed to be that way, to set up that way, to target root cause, to give you all the whole process, like all of the set of processes from start to finish, and all the tools you'll need to really address root causes in so many different ways. Now, of course, if you want to do other stuff, you're more than welcome to, right? It's not like you can only ever do this, but that's just up to like personal interest at that point. How long would it typically take to build a modest number of sessions, for example, 10 hours a week? So we have a whole format set up in there on Business Week about how to make a career transition. So we have like a short to market way, which is a lot to do with I don't want to like go too far into it because I'll go way down the rabbit hole, but there's a way of like getting in front of people, doing workshops, whether it's online or in person, that like guarantee that people are going to show up to your workshops. And then you actually have slides that you can use from the framework and training in IAT for your workshops. And that will get you your first few clients very quickly. Then what you do is, and I'm going way down the rabbit hole into the very small portion of the business week training, but then what you do is you start saving your money from the extra clients you're seeing. Let's say you see your first like 4 clients a week while you're working at your current job. So here you are, you're working 40 hours a week. The reason I cap it at 4 clients is because you don't want to like burn out. So let's say then on top of that, you're seeing 4 new clients for an extra 4 hours a week, but then you have like scheduling and starting to work on your business. So maybe you're working 6 extra hours a week. And let's say you're charging $150 as a starting point per client. Well, now what you're doing is you're saving your extra $600 a week to create a little nest egg so that when you make a career transition, you feel really comfortable and safe because you have this extra amount of savings. But then on top of that, I recommend not having that full career transition until you have a wait list of clients that's long enough where when you leave your current job, you're like, we've got this. We've got the clients, we've got the wait list, we've got the extra money. Now, when you make that transition, it's much more seamless. So that really is going to be about how many hours you're willing to work right away, and how quickly you're ready to make that transition. But generally, if you're literally trying to see like 10 clients a week, if you do everything that I recommend in the courses, we have people who are seeing multiple clients while they're finishing their certification now, because they're just set up for success. They're starting to build their systems as they go along the program. So it can be something that's very quick. And again, that's if you're somebody who's like, I don't really want to work too hard. I just want to learn the tools and then I'll slowly go about it. Then that's going to influence the timeline, of course. Is there a demand for this type of service in UK? Yes. With North America, do you know? Yes. And I do know because when we do our marketing for PDS and for the non-one-to-one, but just the actual online programs, we actually have a huge demographic in UK. It actually goes the US, then it goes the UK, then Australia, then Canada. Even though I'm Canadian, we have it sort of in that order. So there's a massive demographic there, not just North America for sure. Amazing questions. Let's see what else. Is it possible to pay the full amount, Canadian equivalent, an e-transfer in Canadian funds to save on currency exchange fees? I'm sure there's a way. We try to really work with people on different things like this, just to like help support everybody in their different situations. So we don't have like a standardized thing that we do, but if you just jump on a call and book, and we'll put Melanie's email and Ashley's email in here for call bookings. Renee, if you're okay to add those in there. And then what you can just do is share a little bit about your situation, and they'll always try to like figure out a game plan to make sure that you like our different needs are accommodated. So really, really great question. Another great question. Alix, hello. I just recognize your little tiny picture. It's like so small for me on the screen. Is this something that can be helpful in chemical dependency rehabs on a regular basis? Okay. This is a great question. Let me just tell you. If we go off the original format, there's a lot of cutting edge research about this now, but if we go off the original, very historical mindset of that chemical or that we take depression or anxiety as being chemical imbalances, okay, or chemical dependencies having chemical imbalances. One thing you'll learn, and I'm going to go way down the rabbit hole here, but one thing you'll learn is that when we have a belief, let's say I have a core belief, I'm not good enough, okay? And let's pretend I haven't rewired that belief. It comes from my childhood. And then I'm going to, let's say, a networking event with a group of new people. Well, let's say I'm driving there and I'm about to park and I'm pulling up to the networking event. That belief is going to start triggering off thoughts like, okay, here I'm going to a big group of people. What if I'm not interesting enough? What if I'm not fun enough? What if people don't like me enough? What if I'm not all these extensions I think of as like the tree branches coming off of the core belief being the tree trunk, I am not good enough. Okay. What happens when we start thinking all those thoughts? How do we feel? Not good. We have more cortisol. We have more stress, right? Well, guess what? When you have positively oriented thoughts, that creates more serotonin, the well-being neurochemical, or dopamine, the motivation neurochemical, or oxytocin, the bonding neurochemical, depending on what breed those thoughts are, right? If they're bonding thoughts about how you're going to connect with somebody, you're going to have more oxytocin or serotonin. So literally your belief and thought patterns trigger your emotions and the neurochemical reactions that comprise them. And so by learning to rewire your belief patterns at a subconscious level and the thoughts and patterns of emotion that will follow them, it absolutely affects neurochemistry. Okay. So we could go way deeper into that topic and we actually cover a lot of those things. But one of the biggest things that we'll cover towards the end of the program is how to rewire habits. And there's so much I could say about it right now. I'm trying to be mindful that we're already over time, but there's so much about habit rewiring at the end of the program because it's a big subconscious mind piece. And we even talk about some of the really powerful rewiring techniques that have helped people with smoking and just all these different habits that you'll see. So, yes, there's a lot in there that can be a lot of parallels because we target root cause specifically. So great question and nice to see you. Is it possible to upgrade to the live version after taking the on-demand version? Yes, absolutely. We have people that do that where sometimes they can't make the live version for a specific period of time. So they take the on-demand and then they come back to upgrade later. Last year we offered it 3 times for the whole year for the live. And we're going to sort of like decide how many we can do this year depending on the demand and all those sorts of things. So great question. And I think that is okay. Let me do one last question and then we'll wrap for the day. I know we're quite over time here. So the next one. The next question from Oyston. Hi, Oyston. I'm from Norway. Are there any IIT certified coaches in your country? There are. I want to say, I don't know off the top of my head. I want to say we have like 5 or 6, so not a ton, um, because it's more niche for us in terms of the people who find us. But there's a huge demand we see a lot of people come in from like for PDS programs, like students. So again, it's kind of like that demographic where you have like a lot of demand for people looking for tools like this, but lower competition, if anything, which if anything, I would say is a more positive thing. Since I'm Norwegian, do you have workbooks and materials in Norwegian language? I wish I did, but no. Um, but you can translate them, yes. And by the way, not only can you translate them into your language, and you're welcome to do so to use them in your practice, but all of the materials that you get, you'll get to use as if they're your own. So you don't have to, like, if you publish our tools online, like you make a YouTube video and you take them through an exercise that I wrote or created, you just have to cite it, like stuff like that. You have to cite the tools if it's like published, because then it's like in the PDS space. But for any of your clients, practices, workshops that you do, group coaching that you do, in your actual funnels, like any of that stuff, you are good. And they're all made to be that like literally you use those tools like you're your own. You don't have to like cite them to your clients or when you go do corporate presentations or retreats, like they're yours. So really great question. And oh my gosh, it starts at 6 o'clock Eastern. I didn't tell you the time. 6 o'clock Eastern is the next cohort for the live. And you said I've already started a new business, registered it and put it on socials. Oh, cool. I'm in the works with making the website for it now, so I'm all in. I love that. That's amazing. So I will see you there then. That is super exciting. What a great update. Amazing, amazing stuff. So I think a lot of the rest look, I'm already enrolled. A lot of people are already enrolling. Amazing. I'm so excited. I love teaching this. It's like, I love doing all the PDS webinars too. I love them. But this is like extra fun because I get to really dive into all the different tools with you in so much detail. And just know that, I get to support you on your journey to really impacting other people. And it's such a sacred and just like really special career, in my opinion. Again, I'm obviously the most biased person, but it's really, really amazing. So can't wait to share that with you and have you share it with others. So, integrated attachment coupled with recovery has transformed my life, and I want to share it with others. It wouldn't feel like work to me because I believe in it so deeply. That's amazing. And I know you've been in your work too. So that's amazing to hear and just so nice to see you as well. Really amazing stuff. Okay, that is it for today. We're gonna wrap. Thank you for being here. Thank you to everybody who shared. I can't wait to see so many of you coming into the net in the 21st on the 21st. And I'll be looking out for all of you. And I remember your names and everything going into it. So really excited. Thank you for being here, for listening. And yeah, you can email it at any point in time, Melanie at Personal Development School or Ashley at Personal Development School if you have any more questions or want to book a follow-up call. Otherwise, all of those links are there in the chat to sign up. And I will see you guys soon. Have an amazing evening. Thank you so much. Bye, everybody.